all this workshop you do open. It's to establish, talk about our rules of procedure. One of the things we discussed was the time frame or how many times you can table a resolution or a public meeting. And you said you had.
Yeah, so obviously the biggest component tonight is to discuss rules and procedures and how many times the board is willing to hear an application in front of them. I want to remind everybody that we're not here to discuss any specific applications that may be in front of the board. It's just rules and procedures for the new year moving forward. So that was my spiel.
So we have anything to the board or recommendation?
Well, we need to remove the date on here, right? We need to change the date.
So I went through and I highlighted the things that I changed for you guys to review.
Okay.
The date as far as when it's approved, that will go hopefully at the January meeting, because we can't approve them prior to the year starting. So hopefully those dates will be changed to January, whatever, 2024.
The reason you can't approve them is because next year there'll be a different board. Okay, although in this instance it's the same, but you can't approve something that would obligate some other member, if there was to be a new member, okay, for your rules of procedure. Is that going too far into the weeds?
So how does that affect someone that, say, two people left in the middle of the year? Doesn't matter, even those two coming on.
Well, we would hope that whoever was replaced during the year would have been given the rules of procedure that was adopted by that board. You don't have to go back and re-approve the rules of procedure just because you have two members. Two members don't constitute a quorum of the board. That's a good question, though.
Is it you? So I don't know, for me, if you guys wanna go page by page, just so it's easier for me to take notes where you're making changes. Just a thought.
Sure. Go ahead.
The order of business is pretty straightforward. Yeah, I don't know if that's. I mean, I guess maybe H. That's regarding the public hearings. And timeline a little bit, but do we want to talk about that when we get down into section 4 of public hearings? As far as like the timeline of how long we can leave it open. Or closed, I guess. Yeah, it says if continued, it will be continued to a specific date. But maybe that's better discussed under section 4.
Or I can make a comment to refer to that section. Within there. You know what I mean? And then I'll just put in parentheses, refer to.
Yeah, because if we want to limit how many times we're just continuing everything, that's a spot it needs to be mentioned.
I guess the question I have is do we, or will we have a appointed zoning enforcement officer? Or should we just identify the code enforcement officer? I mean,
Or anywhere there's zoning officer, I can add code officer.
Yeah, I mean, the duty technically falls under the department head of the building department, so.
Augie is a code enforcement officer. but he's also the fire marshal. And I guess also the zoning officer.
Apparently tonight.
I just don't want somebody to say, well, you don't have a zoning enforcement officer here tonight, so what are we doing?
Gotcha. So the code. Code officer.
So anywhere I see zoning officer, you guys would like me to add and or code officer?
I
Is
would
that
say,
what- Okay. I'll do that.
I
for
would
Bob.
say, or code enforcement.
Okay,
That way you don't have to have both of them.
okay.
Yeah, it's under order of business V, it says and or the zoning enforcement officer, so places like that. It's a code enforcement.
So I'll change all my and ors to ors.
Yeah.
So it'll say director of development or zoning officer or code officer.
Okay, yeah, that works.
Okay,
Yeah, that way,
More flexible.
and it's clear.
Yeah.
and I'll do that throughout and I'll highlight them when I send them back out. to you.
I guess under E, we say posting of the legal notice on the bulletin board. We also post it online now, right?
Right.
So do you want to say? Forward slash town website?
They both be considered.
Yeah, what's
Public?
the?
We're doing under order of business. So
legalese with that?
are we doing under order of business right now?
Yeah, under E,
So
yeah.
that's here at the meeting. So I have to have them here at the meeting. And I have to have them available. Later, I think we talk about where I have to put them.
Oh.
Same heading, order of business. I should applicant not appear before the board on the night of the public meeting. We've already moved it to the end of the public hearings. Now they still don't show up. Should in there somewhere say, do that again, 2 times. They automatically decline it, with no prejudice to it, or
I think you need to,
Letter N explains it.
what is the,
Letter N says failure by the applicant to appear before the board at the next scheduled public hearing and or meeting may result in the board taking action to deny that. So you covered that.
I guess going back up under M, the public hearing of an application may be continued by the board for a longer period of time based upon the written request. Is that another spot where you want to put a time limit on it? I think there's I don't know, like, where do we stick that in, I guess, right, Ron? That's.
yeah. Another part of M might be that it be based upon the applicant's written request or the recommendation from the code enforcement officer or the director of planning development, because you may have an applicant that says, yeah, I'm good to next month. And Dan says to the applicant, well, you got to give me this material by such and such a date, or we can't put you on the agenda. So we have to have some flexibility there that allows Dan or okay, to change the applicant's recommendation because it's just not gonna be available. I mean, the applicant is asked, when can you provide this? Oh, 3 weeks. Well, that's not enough time for staff to review it, find it complete, and then make a draft recommendation to you. So somewhere in there, language, the effect, but it's more than just the applicant's written request. Maybe it's the applicant's written request, setting forth the reason for such extended period of time, and the code enforcement officer or director of planning and development's agreement for acceptance of that time period. In other words,
that you guys can say.
you understand? Yeah, because the other part of this is that, you know, Jeff Graff has said that you can say, you know, that you declare your intent if this thing doesn't get determined to be complete, that you're going to recommend disapproval without prejudice on the grounds that it's incomplete. And that then triggers a section of the town code, which basically says, once an application has been denied by the zoning board of appeals, a resubmittal of the same application will not be entertained for a year unless new information has been provided. Well, what's the new information going to be? A complete application? You know, I'm we need to think about somehow inserting, if we're going to say that we intend to deny without prejudice the application, explain whatever the section that is of the code that specifies once denied, you know, a new application will not be entertained for a period of 1 year unless the board finds that there has been a change in the application. It's not just new information, that the application has changed. So if you've got an area variance,
Does it say that the application change, or does it need, or does it say new information?
change the application. There's
It
been,
does state that in town.
yeah.
Because I mean, to me, new information can be.
Yeah, I know.
kind of,
Uh-huh.
I think it's substantial change and you or Augie or Dan have to make that.
Yeah. We did that recently on one. I don't remember which one it was. Before the planning board.
So I can get the section of code from Augie, add that to letter N, and say what that section of the code says. If you guys agree to that.
Yeah, that's good.
Cause that way it's right there. And
And
Because
then,
I wouldn't know that that section of the code exists otherwise. There you go.
and then in M, I can add
for a while.
about the extended time period. Or if requested by Director of Development or Code Enforcement Officer. Again, I'll make all these changes, highlight them, so you guys can review them.
Okay.
The reference them to the pipeline.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, you know, once you've been given the specific information that you've asked for, and after so many times you haven't provided it without any reason whatsoever, then, you know, that's where you can build that disapproval without prejudice, because it's wasting governmental efficiency.
So they can- Second situation. That say that
If they're meeting the dates though, set forth in front of them, we can't, you have to continue,
what they're not producing. That's the point. If they produce something and then something new comes again, then it's continue. None of us
But what happens if they don't do something first time and then the second time they do do something? I mean, where do we draw that line?
Well, let's say they don't have a complete application to begin with. And you've identified to them what you need. Or the planning board has identified to them what they need, of which you're a part. And the applicant has failed on numerous occasions. When you look at a application that begins and 6 months later, you're no further ahead than where you were. And that might be grounds there for recommending disapproval without prejudice, because you've inconvenienced the public, you've required additional documentation be provided by the town procedurally. And yet you have received nothing.
That time. Which one? My question, I guess.
Yeah, that's a reasonable length of time.
Well,
We can't really put a length of time because our situation is different though. Because if we continue the public hearing, because somebody doesn't show up. And then the next time they show up but don't have a complete application, we're continuing it again. I feel like everything is so case by case. I mean, none of us want to have the public hearing continued over and over again, but I think it's hard because every scenario is different.
Can you say like the second request, if they haven't fulfilled like that information being asked by the town, like,
Yeah, the second.
I think it needs to be like a 3-strike rule.
Yeah.
They need to see it, they need to be able to see like, look, you're gonna get 3 tries to get your information in, and then if you don't, then we're not gonna sit around for months and months and wait for you to get your information. And we'll make them resubmit it, the application will close it, and we'll make them resubmit everything over.
I think if you
They have to wait.
make it clear, as Sarah is going to do, that, once it's disapproved, there has to be substantial change to the application in order for it to be reheard, or you have to wait a year.
Right.
Right, but they should know that too.
I don't think that is well known by a lot of people.
Right.
Okay,
So if they do know that, that's kind of gonna maybe kickstart them to be like, look, okay, I can't wait another year if this, if I don't get my information and this gets
Right.
canceled on me.
yeah, I think we can come up with wording to that effect.
But if they come up with an application. Say. This is not the next meeting after that. Say to take 3 weeks. to get the information. I don't have time. See what's right from the boss. They can't, instead of that 2-week period.
The next thing that needs to be addressed, however, is what is a new application? In other words, say you come in and you want this, but now you've been thinking about maybe I ought to do this. This is different than the legal notice that you provided in the first instance. It should be up to the code officer to interpret whether that second submission constitutes a new application, and that the first application must be either withdrawn by the applicant or acted on by the ZBA before considering a second application.
That makes sense.
It makes, yeah.
I'm on a roll here
If
tonight.
they don't know if it needs to be substantial. The way I look at it, if they wanna spend the money to do another application. They're just gonna keep wasting their money.
You just have to withdraw their.
I know, we need to have, we can't just have them just
Resubmit the same
resubmit the same,
application.
but if there's some, if they decided then they got the information they need and they're gonna resubmit a new application with that information, fine. Maybe the price changes, maybe they. Because it's within a year time, maybe instead of being $150, whatever it is, it's $300 or something. You got some penalty maybe?
I don't know if you guys can do that, cause I mean. We're about to be approving the wage or the fee schedule next month. So that might be something that they would have to talk to the town board about.
Yeah, and the town board can always amend the fee schedule at any point during the year. I mean, it's not cast in concrete. But the point being is that you will only end up confusing the public if you allow an initial application to remain open while considering a second application for basically the same thing on the same
Oh,
property.
yeah, I'm not talking about keeping
No.
one open, I mean closing the other one and forcing them to do a new one and pay them a fee. You know, because they didn't have the information within the time period that we allotted.
Right, and withdrawing the application then would not kick in the 1 year period requiring a substantial change.
The application.
Agree? Okay,
So am I gonna add another letter for that?
I think we should have another letter to
Okay.
clarify that.
In the same, where like M and N are. I'll bump everything down and that will be our new, and you can help me write that.
Yes,
Okay,
just make a note there that withdraw.
Can there
before-
be a subsection maybe of them,
I'd make it separate,
separate?
not to get
Okay.
lost in the translation and hidden in a subsection.
So then the 1 year starts at the decline of an application. If they withdraw it on their own accord, they could apply again in a month.
Right. But if a board denies the application for whatever reason, then it cannot be resubmitted unless there's substantial change determined by the code officer that there is substantial change, and therefore that provision of the code can be waived by the zoning board of appeals. That's another important thing. Okay, Dan or Augie determines it's substantial. You confirm or deny, you can override, okay, the interpretation.
So. When you say deny, I look at that two different ways, so when we deny something within years, you know, an application in front of us, we deny it, that's denied. If they don't come where the information, they don't bring the information to us over a period, say, let's say 3 months. And then we deny it, I think that's different though, you know what I mean? The way I look at that, because the information, we denied the applicant because it didn't follow code. But here, it's more so just because the information didn't come in.
You'd be denying without prejudice, so that you'd be allowing them to resubmit
Yes,
in that, after that 1 year.
yes.
Whereas a denial from your
It's a
board,
straight denial.
it's there's no substantial change that could be made to that for a resubmittal.
But I'm just looking at just giving them the opportunity, if, to get the information in, you know, if we did just deny it. Okay, so they're gonna pay another $100 fee to do the application, but now they were able to get all the information. And they won't have to wait that year, but we just flat out deny it, you know, during one of these meetings, totally different story 1 year. Unless it's something super change to it. That's the difference I'm having with denying. That's. I don't wanna punish them, and they're being punished by having it denied, because they didn't give the information to us in a timely fashion, but they're gonna have another chance to be able to put an application, and give us that information, but it's gonna cost them again, the application. That's the way that's this.
Yeah, they can't piggyback on this first submitted application. No double dipping.
Right. Right, the first one would be definitely denied, or
Yeah.
closed, but like closed based on no information, you know.
Even if it's withdrawn. Okay, say I withdraw this first application. when I submit the second application, I have to submit a new fee.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
We figured out, talked in circles a little bit, but have we figured out how many times we're gonna let them come before us? Continue public hearings? We haven't decided that, right?
I think Kelly made a very good point.
Yeah.
Is there a legal thing that says we have to wait, have to keep continuing it?
Jeff Grant says you can try to put something reasonable in there. There's nothing in any state law that says if you don't do something within a specified period of time, then it's not, I mean, it's not like the default provision that's in state law that if, you close a public hearing and you don't take action on it within 62 days, then, it's technically approved. Same way with the planning board. If they don't take action, within a specified period of time of closing a public hearing, they're subject to having the town clerk issue a certificate of approval failure to decide.
But continuing, if they're giving us more information, we're continuing, then there's no issue.
But if nothing changes.
Yes. That's what we need to.
And this is, I feel like this is hard because I think we want a time frame on it. I don't know if you can put a time frame though. Only because then I feel like we're subjected to it. If we say like 3 times, well then what stops somebody from trying to do it, and have it continue 3 separate times?
Well, we can, and there's no change.
Right.
After 3 meetings, no change. No information change, they're
Yeah.
not showing up, they're not doing what they're supposed to do, then we can deny it. If there's absolutely no change, but if there is change, where they're trying and they're trying to get information in, and we just keep going on as.
You guys also have to remember that you are also working sometimes side by side with the planning. So you have to
There's
keep
timelines
that in
that
mind.
Higher than those?
You're working side by side with them. No, in some cases, you're working side by side, so you have to keep that in mind too.
Right. But again, if they're not getting information that they're supposed to be getting.
Then
we're not
that,
getting-
they would have to set something in their rules of procedure to mimic yours.
Yes. That's what I think they need to start thinking about. And maybe putting it in yours and then saying, here it is, what do you think? Maybe they'll focus them on mimicking.
Does that happen often with the planning board where they're waiting and waiting and waiting? for people?
I can think of some applications.
Yeah, there was one application where they had gone through site plan approval. And the applicant kept asking for continuation because of COVID and other market conditions that, they'd invested a lot of time and effort in putting together detailed plans and specifications for. And I almost think they had a better credit. I could be wrong. But one or two of the members of the planning board, after 6 or 8 months or close to a year or more, decided they were getting sick and tired of it and wanted to, recall their approval and deny it. Okay, on what grounds? You don't have anything in your rules of procedure, and they've never addressed that. Yeah, this could really trigger something, yes.
I mean, I feel like we need more of a guideline, but when you start putting numbers on it 3 times.
Can we say it's at our
Discretion.
judgment, or discretion, is that? Or that's like, is that too?
That's a pretty big gray area.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
too much.
I guess what it sounds to me, this is just my opinion of what you guys have been saying. Is you don't want to put after 3 strikes, you guys are out. Because ultimately that applicant could come back to you guys and provide the information you've requested, which then makes you ask more questions about, hey, well, we need this now. So it's almost, if we ask you 3 times for the same thing and you do not supply it, at that point, okay, you have failed to provide us with what we've asked for 3 times. It is the exact same thing. So you guys are looking at repetition. I think that's what you guys are getting at is,
Yeah.
we don't want to ask for the same thing 3 times.
Yep.
If we have to continue it because things have changed and that's generating more questions, absolutely.
That's fine.
Right.
But I don't think it's unreasonable to put a time frame from the board standpoint of, we're gonna, yeah, you have 3 opportunities to provide us with the information requested. And then we're going to deny it without prejudice, because we can't keep going back and forth. So I think that's, it's wording, you know, if we're wording it as, if the applicant is requested to provide the same same details, same information 3 times, and it is not provided, the board is going to act and deny it without prejudice. I think I think that hits your guys' goals of what you're looking to do, but it's not really setting an unrealistic time frame.
And it's 3 times too many, we're asking the same thing. I mean, you've got to a point where you've done the application, you're trying to do your research, you're coming to us, we're really gonna ask you 3 times?
I mean, they might be waiting,
I
they
know.
might be waiting on someone else for information.
Well, then why
That's-
would you? I feel like you need to get your ducks in a row and have your stuff together before you get to this point where it gets to us. So why do we ask you? 3
But if we
times?
ask them for some information, right, and they have to go get it, you know what I mean? If they say, well,
And
now
it's different information,
Yeah.
yes.
I want you to provide
Do
something.
you really have to say 3 times, or can you just say, and information is not provided to the board in a reasonable amount of
That's what I
time?
would put out there.
What's reasonable, that's subjective, and that's
Right.
what lawyers.
I guess that's
back and
true,
be
too.
like, well, reasonable to me, 6 months, not 3 months. I think we need to,
Well, we
if we're
also,
gonna do something in that line, we need to,
but we also pass resolutions that have dates in it that say, you have until this day to submit the information for our review. If that information is not received, then this will.
so we could either say 3 months from when we opened up the first zoning meeting or something on that application.
Yeah.
So,
But I don't know how to do the wording.
I can't
I mean, I agree. with
shoot it off the hip. right
Yeah.
here.
Right.
So that might be something else I'll work with Ron on.
And then you can draft something, we can just look at it. and
Yeah.
see. Makes sense.
Concert with the planning board too. They kind of have to hear about this.
He'll be there at the planning board meeting.
Yeah,
Right.
I think that one of the other things that you need to add to your rules procedure gets to what Jeff Graff was talking about. And that is, you shouldn't be receiving an application for an area variance where there's a pending subdivision. Well, okay, it has to be referred by the planning board upon their acceptance of a complete application. That would avoid some circumstances that you may have been placed in.
The planning board doesn't approve subdivisions, there's no point. Bring it to us.
Well, the planning board has to determine that they have a complete application.
Okay.
And right now, they don't on some things.
Yeah.
Okay. So we're gonna get better internally with, you know, accepting applications for variances, and if we suspect that there may be a planning board subdivision involved. And it's only subdivision, is site plan approval, could also be involved, because they could have a site plan in which you would have a variance identified. Okay, so keeping in mind that in both instances, you have the right to ask the planning board for a recommendation on what they deem to be the minimum variance necessary to accomplish whatever it is that's being proposed.
That would be.
It should have been, if there was a preliminary site plan that identified the need for a variance. Okay, It's up. That's where you get the two words together.
I figure out why would we even get an application if it hadn't gone through the planning first? I mean, shouldn't the code enforcer be like, well, we're not setting this to the ZBA because it's not complete from planning.
I think that is understood to be the practice now.
I mean, if we need to state that.
We kind of are,
Okay.
so. But again, Ryan and I will work on that work. Good. So I plan to add like 3 letters to your, we're going to like A, B, C.
I'm ready to go to AA.
Yep.
So I'll add those things that we just talked about under the order of business. Yeah, we can move forward if you guys are ready to move forward.
I think we circled that.
Yeah, we did.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we can see what you guys come up with and then see if it makes sense or not.
If it's really good, you're permanent.
Even if it's
It already works.
It's all right.
Let's face it.
Item, page 3, item X. Just above official decision forms. Following the above, the chair of the board will then entertain a motion to adjourn the meeting. Under Robert's Rules of Procedure, a motion to adjourn can be made at any time by any board member. If it's voted on and accepted by a majority of the board, the meeting's adjourned. This kind of says you can't do that.
Oh, this says he's the only one that can.
Oh, we should take out following the above
Right.
Right.
and just say the chairperson will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Yep.
Okay.
No matter how many times you look at these,
Everything does keep working.
again, here's a zoning officer, can be code officer zoning,
Yeah, anywhere I see zoning, I'll add code,
or,
or you,
yeah.
maybe the 3 of you should be there.
Wasn't really for the procedures, but do we tell people that they have to present their application to us? Cause I feel like whenever you ask people to present it, they kind of look like.
We tell.
Okay, okay. I just
There's a
wanted-
lot of work that goes into it.
Okay, that's
before
what I
we
wanted
get
to
you
know.
guys.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
figured, cause I just feel like there's always that deer in headlights look like, oh, I have to talk.
Yeah,
about
the
it.
applicant has at this point have already spoken to a code officer.
Yep,
Carol or I,
yep,
so the applicant at this point has had or even conversations with Ron and Dan.
Yep.
Or Augie, so they've had conversations with us.
okay. And they know that they have to present it to us when they get here.
Yeah. Cause we also tell them they have to be here, or someone needs to be here to present their.
Okay. I just wanted to ask. They're on page 4. And the once this information has been entered into the public record. That paragraph, there's an or that's crossed out. About 4 lines up. The right to.
Oh, I see it. Okay.
At some point in here, do you want to put a statement to the fact that the chairperson has the right to determine that, a statement had already been made and we don't need to remake it?
Yep, I don't just, I mean, that wouldn't be, that is not clear cut new information. I can say that sounds the same thing we need or something.
Yeah,
Person to person to person.
I'm just saying some kind of wording in there that gives everybody notice that you don't want to hear the same thing regurgitated 16 times. And that you will determine whether it's already been addressed. Okay,
That would go under, yeah.
I would say under public hearings. And I would say probably new fourth paragraph.
I'll say, because that ends with wishing to speak again on the application.
Yeah.
Yeah, if they have something.
There you can say the chairperson, the chair may also determine whether the information being discussed is new information or not. I think that.
The right.
Yeah,
Right, so, it's not closing next year. then they'll-
interrupting, saying, we've got that already. We gotta move again.
So the 18.
You guys didn't want to go to anything.
We're going.
This year you can.
We're good up to 18. Okay.
That's.
I'm not taking over.
But grudgingly will.
Oh, I mean, can you have more than one in there? What happens if I didn't show up?
So the planning board does have a,
Well, if he's not here and you're not here,
but you know.
Well,
Yeah.
okay, it would be, I would think, based on seniority.
Yeah, that's fine.
Is everybody good with that?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'll look.
For that, yeah, it's okay.
I'll look at
You guys aren't here.
The planning board uses, because they have 3. Right.
So it's agreed that Tom
Yeah,
Lay,
take it over.
okay,
So under 21, the whole thing is highlighted.
Right.
I changed that to be the same as the planning board.
Yeah.
It may be in the one I,
Totally different.
it may be at the one I left at your seat. No, all right, go ahead, Sarah.
we're on page 10 to 12.
And since we're talking about spindle dates, the only one that's changed to not be the 4th Monday, I believe, is May, which we usually have to change that one, I think.
Yeah, if we have one.
Yeah, if there's a meeting.
where do we have in here about notice? About the next meeting?
As far as,
Something that basically says that the zoning board of appeals meets on an as needed basis. And not,
well, at the end of every meeting, we know if we have enough.
yes, okay. And what I'm saying is, do we say that in here? And if we don't, should we be saying that in here? And should we also then be saying in here that when it has been determined there is no agenda item for the next month's tentatively scheduled meeting, that a notice of that effect will be posted, published? You're already doing it. You see what I'm saying? Yeah.
Yeah, I do. I don't know if it's in here somewhere.
Okay, well. If not,
Here's another thing I wanna say, though, we just talked about all the new information, 3-1 stuff. Then there's, I think, there's 28 new information, it talks about new information, and then they close, that there's no new information. We wanna like remove that and move that over to the public hearing section and make it do number there, and then that information.
I would, in the new, in that section you were talking about where you've got all those. I would make a reference to item 28,
Okay.
okay, and
I
leave,
just didn't want it to be confused because we're talking about an intersection and all of a sudden now it's here. But it's not saying the same what we're talking about.
right.
This is. Being some we're obligated to continue it, so we have time to evaluate. If we accept it, we still have the ability to deny something.
Maybe that's new information.
Letters that we added in.
The new refer to 28.
No, up here in order of business.
Yeah,
So maybe that new information received needs to say new information received during the meeting. That's actually what it's talking about, not just new information in general. To application, just say that it's new information received during
Meeting and
zoning board meeting.
take it, right, we would have to continue it, because we have to have time to review it, or we just pass it to you guys. Let you look at it and see if it's something new that we should continue with. Is that what 28 is saying, is during the meeting,
Yeah.
referencing it?
So it sounds like.
If you see on page 3, the small r at the top. Once a public hearing has been closed, there shall be. Maybe that's where you can put in brackets. Also see section 28 of these rules.
oh, okay.
Right, 28 is speaking of, if they're trying to pass information to us during the public hearing.
Outside of the meeting request.
Right. And 28 basically says, once you close the public hearing, that's it.
So is there somewhere in here where Ty and I talked about it, we're in public hearing? And then goes it over, I only have this with me tonight, I want you to look at it, so that triggers us.
Yeah,
That's number 28.
Is the first part of 28 is prior to the close then.
Or just push it, okay. Great. And then it's just new information pertaining to the matter. Yeah, that's it, I mean. When does the applicant submit that new information? Is it during the meeting, is it? I just don't want it to confuse what we're talking about, so that you know information's coming. It's two different things and then two different sections. So I'm like, well, this says this here, so I can do it. I don't want it to contradict you.
Yeah, so 28th giving you the ability to accept information during the meeting. As long as you haven't closed the public hearing. And then it references again back into the rules and procedures. If the public hearing has been closed, you cannot consider that information.
Right, and on page 4 of 12, under item 4, public hearings, first paragraph, the board will not take action. That wasn't what I was looking at.
I just think we just need to new information received need to be dictated that it's.
At the bottom of the page, in the event of petition.
I can change it to say new information received during public hearing.
Yeah.
Yeah, that comes back, when we had, where we weren't accepting anything new at the meeting, they had to be beforehand.
But earlier, the part you missed, we talked about what we were gonna do. So,
So I'm not sure, I'm trying to read that,
yeah, we've added in the order of business, we've added 3 or 4 additional letters as to what you guys are gonna do with new information or new situations.
Well, better.
Yep, ×2.
I could only start feeling my mouth about an hour, 45 minutes ago, so didn't feel like I wanted to show up to make sure I wasn't drooling up here, so. I had a dentist appointment late today, so
Would have zoomed in for you.
I didn't want to sit up here looking like that.
You guys need to wrap it up because we need time to think.
Okay. The only thing I see is it should be finally resolved that the board does hereby direct Sarah Mitchell to file certified.
No, clear.
So I'll make a motion to.
What?
the public hearing. No, what?
Just one question before you do. I see we have the schedule here
Oh, yeah.
attached. And should we have a section?
It's referred to in here. It's a section that I added based on the planning board and it's called Appendix A. So it's listed in here twice. So when I file the rules of procedure, this will be filed with them.
Okay. Wherever,
I can't see it right off the top of my head right now, but I know.
bend over, Lindsay.
Okay, so motion to adjourn the public hearing.
No, no,
There's no to approve first.
you're not, this is not a public hearing.
No, I'm sorry. Workshop, sorry. No, because they're already ready. Oh, that's right. So not doing anything. So a motion,
So a motion to adjourn the workshop?
second.
Second.
By Jody. All in favor?
Aye.
We're gonna be busy.
So I know we. So